Amir, a charismatic 22-year-old university student, was used to being noticed but never truly challenged. His world shifted when he encountered Hur, a reserved young woman whose quiet strength and unwavering devotion to her faith left him unsettled. Over weeks, Amir observed her from afar, drawn not by attraction alone, but by the way her life reflected a purpose he lacked. Each brief encounter, a missed glance, a fleeting moment, deepened his curiosity and exposed his spiritual emptiness. Amir's fascination wasn't about her, but about what she represented, a path back to Allah. The campus was a chaos of sound and motion, laughter spilling from the stairs, horns blaring from the street, the canteen humming with voices weaving stories Amir never joined. At 22, he was known, not famous, but seen. Clean-cut, confident, always dressed like he had somewhere important to be. If someone called him charming, he'd flash that half-smile, tilt his head and say, "I try." People liked him. Girls noticed him. Life was easy, but today wasn't. She appeared like a shadow moving against the current, walking toward the same gate he leaned against. Her hijab framed her face, soft fabric cascading over her shoulders, her books pressed tightly to her chest. Her steps were quick, deliberate, as if the world's noise was something she'd trained herself to tune out. Her gaze, lowered, firm, intentional. Their paths crossed for a heartbeat. Amir, used to catching eyes, waited for the flicker, the shy glance, the subtle acknowledgement. But there was nothing. She passed like he was air, her presence a quiet force that left him startled, curious, and strangely small. He turned his head as she moved on, her silhouette fading into the crowd. For a man who thrived on being seen, being invisible felt like a collision. No fluttering lashes, no stolen look, just absence. That was the beginning. Over the next few days, Amir saw her again. Always at a distance, always the same. Silent, composed, untouchable. In lectures, she sat near the front, her pen moving steadily across her notebook. She spoke only when called upon, her voice soft but clear, then slipped out the moment class ended. She didn't linger, didn't laugh too loud, didn't join the clusters of students snapping selfies outside the hall. From the attendance list, he learned her name. Hur. Hur. The name felt like a whisper, delicate yet distant, like her. He watched. Not obsessively, he told himself, but with a pull he couldn't explain. He noticed the smallest things, how she paused before entering the masjid area, her lips moving faintly with a dua, how she whispered Bismillah before unzipping her bag, how she adjusted her scarf when a group of boys passed too close, her fingers swift and practiced. It wasn't just her appearance, though her elegance was undeniable. It was how she carried herself, like she belonged to something beyond the world's reach, not to people, not even to herself. And that unraveled him. One humid afternoon, Amir stood near the campus cafe, sipping coffee that had gone cold. She walked by, same path, same silence. A gust of wind caught her scarf, tugging it slightly. She stopped, turned, and fixed it with care, her movements precise, almost sacred. For a fraction of a second, their eyes nearly met. He held his breath, waiting for the moment to spark. But she looked away, her gaze returning to the ground, and kept walking. Something stirred in Amir, a pull toward her, and a wall he couldn't cross. He'd known girls before, flirted effortlessly, laughed over late-night texts, unraveled hearts with playful ease. But Hur was different. She didn't invite, she didn't entertain, and yet she made his heart feel wrong, exposed, like he'd been playing a game he didn't even understand. Weeks passed, he never spoke to her, but she haunted his thoughts. At night, when the campus grew quiet, he'd lie awake, replaying the moments he saw her. The way she folded her hands during a lecture, listening intently. The way she smiled, rarely but always at something small, like a bird landing near her bench. The way her presence seemed to carry a light he couldn't touch. He started noticing things about himself too, how he'd stopped praying regularly, letting Salah slip into the background of his busy life. How his conversations with friends felt shallow, filled with jokes that no longer landed. How his confidence, once his armor, now felt like a mask. One evening outside the library, he saw her again. She sat alone on a bench, reading, the golden hour light spilling over her. A soft breeze stirred the leaves around her, and the pages of her book fluttered. Amir's heart raced. Maybe just a salam, he thought, just a kindness. It's not haram, right? He took a step forward, rehearsing the words in his mind. But before he could speak, she stood, slipped her book into her bag, and walked away. Her movements were calm, unaware, but the message was clear. Her boundaries weren't spoken, they were lived. Her ḥayāʼ was a fortress, not of arrogance, but of devotion. That night, Amir couldn't sleep, not because she'd rejected him, she hadn't even seen him, but because he felt bare. He was so used to the chase, the playful dance of glances and words, the slow unraveling of intentions. But Hur didn't play, she protected. And it wasn't about him. It was about someone bigger. He remembered a conversation with his mother years ago when he'd asked why his father loved her so fiercely. She'd smiled, her eyes soft, and said, "Because I never gave him what wasn't his to take. My heart belonged to Allah first." The words hadn't meant much then. Now they cut. The next morning, Amir woke before dawn. For the first time in months, he unrolled his prayer mat. Alone in his room, he stood for Fajr, his movements rusty but deliberate. He whispered, "Ya Allah, make me worthy, not of her, but of what she reminded me of." Because Hur wasn't just a girl, she was a mirror, reflecting his own distance from faith, his own hunger for meaning. She was a signpost pointing to a path he'd wandered from. Weeks turned to months. Amir didn't stop seeing Hur in lectures, on campus paths, in fleeting moments that never grew into more. But he stopped seeking her. Instead, he sought himself. He prayed more, not perfectly, but consistently. He read Quran again, the words feeling new, alive. He distanced himself from friends whose laughter felt hollow, seeking those whose conversations turned to purpose, to Allah. Hur remained a mystery, untouched by his gaze. He never learned her story, her dreams, her fears. And maybe that was the point. She didn't need to be known to leave an impact. Her light wasn't for him to hold, it was for him to witness. Not all love stories end in marriage. Some aren't love stories at all. Some are awakenings meant to stir the soul from slumber. Some are protections, guarding what should never be touched. Some are reminders that the most powerful influence comes not from a voice that calls, but from a heart that guards. Hur never looked back. She didn't need to. Her path was steady, her purpose clear. And in her silence, she left behind a trail of light. One that guided Amir, not to her, but to himself and to Allah.